Um, this is the changes to the living caregiver. I don't know if you remember that, even members of parliament were accused of abusing living caregivers and all this stuff. So the organization of the living caregivers in Toronto is huge, is very powerful. And they did an alliance with the unions, and they managed to get all these changes that are moving in the right direction. No? Okay, the first one is they eliminate the second medical examination. Originally, the program said when the living caregiver was accepted as a permanent resident, they have to do a medicals again. I don't know, you remember this Filipino woman that was working in Kingston, then she developed cancer when she was here. So she didn't pass the second exam. And they said, well, no way, you gotta go home. And that's when the whole fight started. So, because the implications of that case, Immigration Canada said, well, if you pass the first medical exam and you met the criteria for permanent resident, it's fine, you stay. Okay? So that's a huge victory. The time period in which to meet the requirement to apply for PR will be extended from 3 years to 4 years. Before, you have to work 2 years in 3 years. Now you have to work the equivalent, and I think I have the hours here, no? And it's no months, it's no years, it's hours. You have to meet 3,900 hours during 4 years to meet the criteria to become a permanent resident. Most of them, they work between 10 to 12 hours. Okay. So now the push is for, and that hours were not counted before. So they were saying, how many years do you work? How many months? And they were applying more or less the same conditions, for everybody. Doesn't matter the conditions or hours or whatever. With this one, the living caregiver is now empowered to say to the employer, you know what, I work 12 hours and I need it because I'm going to apply for permanent resident. Before was not an argument. So now, well, if the employer is going to give it to them, that's another business, but at least they have the possibility to do it. And they need to receive reports every month about the hours. So the check, the payment, have to say how many hours the person have worked during that month. And that goes to the, what is it, the Revenue Canada, is it? No, it's employment, social insurance number, I don't know which, and they do the calculation in order to have, because this is the report from the employer that you send, no? Every year, the T4. So what is based for the 3,900 is the T4. So there is 3 victories that are very important. This is law in Ontario. So that's big changes, and it's a federal law as well. And this one is good one. By federal and provincial government to pay travel costs, medical insurance, workplace safety insurance, recruiting fees to the third parties. So now it's becoming illegal by a third party to charge the living caregiver to find a job for her or for him in Canada. They can charge the employer. The employer can hire someone to identify someone, but not the opposite, than the employee or the potential employee is going to hire a company to find an employer. No. And what is the big thing? Is because before they were double dipping, no? So the intermediary, they were charging the employer and the employee. So now it's illegal. How they are going to implement the law, nobody knows, because most of these fees are overseas. You know what I mean? If we have a fee in Canada, we report it, but it's basically, no. What I said is that the the intermediary. We have, how they're called, employment companies or employment agencies. They were set up here and overseas to link the living caregiver with the employer.
Yes.
Okay? So Manitoba has the best law in this because they go after everybody. But here in Ontario they said, okay, if the employer wants to spend money in an employment agency to identify someone and is going to come and work with me, that's fine. But there is no possible that the employee, the potential living caregiver, hire or pay a fee to the employment agency to find an employer. Why? Because most of the time were exploitations, no?
Yeah.
And the people come here with a contract and was not true. Or they receive money from the employer and from the living caregiving as well. And they were charging, that's why I use the term double dipping, because they were charging from everywhere. If you have an agency that is doing that, you can report it to the authorities because it's a crime. Okay, and look, the contract now, before approved by Immigration Canada, has to establish the benefits. Employee must sign a mandatory clause in the contract clearly outlining the caregiving duties, hours of work, overtime, holidays, sick leave, and termination and resignation terms. We didn't have that before. That's a huge improvement, at least on paper, no? But now you can go to an agency and say, you know, they are violating the contract. Before, was not a contract. So, you know what I mean? So now you said, you know that by law it's 8 hours of work a day. They won't be able to go farther than that. So anything that she works or he works after or more than 8 hours is extra hours. And is a different payment as well. And they can do compensation time and different things that they didn't have before. They are going to create a monitoring and enforcement mechanisms that haven't been developed in Ontario yet. The law was approved in December last year, more or less. So we haven't had an increase in the monitoring of the things. What we have seen is that the person goes to our office with more papers, no? And it's easier to contact the employer and say, this is what is happening, what's going on. And the employer immediately, now some employers that are firing the living caregiver, they are even trying to help them with another place and whatever because they know the implications for them. So I think it's way better than before. And this one haven't been developed yet. It's only what you see in the website of Immigration Canada because it's more information over there, no? To protect it. So this is one of the best changes for living caregivers. This is becoming the easiest way, in a way, to become a permanent resident after 3,900 hours of working as a living caregiver. But still the main problem. You know what was the main problem for the living caregiver program? Well, there is two main problems. One is what the name implies. Live in. So some people are saying, why has to be a live in? Why is not possible to live out and come and work every? Well, the excuse or the justification from Immigration Canada is, well, many people in Canada do the live out and can come and work. That's not the issue. The issue is that the employer needs someone to live in their house because they want to have a disponibility of 24 hours in case that something happens, children or whatever. So that's the excuse to the live-in. We are saying, well, it's not needed, but anyway. And the second big problem is that it's a work permit for individuals only. So a mother has to leave husband and children back home for more than 4 years sometimes to bring them here to sponsor them into Canada. That is a huge problem. You know, you can imagine some of the living caregivers, they brought children that they haven't seen in 6, 7 years. No? So, and the disruption in the family is very, very problematic. But that one haven't been solved yet. But did you see the improvement? The hotline, I try it, doesn't work yet. So before I come in here, so that, but there's a good intention. You know, and look, that was another huge improvement, because when the living caregiver was brought on the street and she didn't have a place to go or whatever, the months start counting, and to switch employer was very difficult. Now look the commitment. In 3 weeks, they are saying that they will approve the change of the closed work permit. So meaning that changing the name of this employer to the name of the other employer and address and whatever, they will have to pay the $150, but that's what you do. They will no longer be stuck for months, no? And getting a labor market opinion will be easier again. So they are trying to put someone, an stranger, inside a house, open up a Pandora's box. So they realize that, so they are going to try to give more possibilities to people to protect themselves. Okay, as I said, was approved in 2009, and look this, no? For the recruitment, $50,000 penalty or 1 year in jail. We haven't had any luck to put anyone, you know, to charge that money, but at least it's a scary business, no, for someone to start doing that. What we realized that the majority of the intermediators of the employment agencies, they haven't read this. So we phoned them and said, do you know that the law changed in December 2009? And you can look information, and they said, really? And they go, but before it was not against the law, but now it is. And the people have to go back, give back the money that they have charged. In order to avoid prosecution, the agency has to say, well, I charge you $3,000, here is the money back. We haven't managed to do that yet in any of the cases.